On tonight's programme, one side lobbies Holyrood, the other lot say they'll be sending 300,000 leaflets ahead of the election on Thursday. So is gay marriage about to dominate the political debate, even if the politicians don't want it to? Speaking of elections, we're on Islay ahead of people going to the polls to hear about jobs, housing and land. And find out why this programme's been causing a stir on the other side of the Atlantic.
In an interview with the BBC, the former Liberal leader talked about the inevitability of Quebec separation.
Hello, good evening. Tonight, we're talking about the Union, who it's for, and if we need a referendum to decide its future. No, nothing to do with Scotland's constitution. We are, in fact, debating marriage and whether it should be open to same-sex couples. The Catholic Church has led the campaign against changing the law, but a range of faith-based groups have formed a rival campaign to make clear there's more than one religious view on same-sex unions. They lobbied Holyrood today. Well, we'll hear from both sides shortly. First, here's David Allison.
Another day, another lobby at Holyrood over proposals to allow religious same-sex marriage in Scotland. This group, Faith and Marriage, which includes a range of Christian churches as well as Quakers, Jews, Humanists, Buddhists and the Iona community, handed in an open letter to MSPs demanding the right to conduct same-sex marriages.
We've kind of been here before, haven't we? The row over Section 28 of more than a decade ago showed just how charged an issue of sexuality can be in a political sense. And when you get different elements of society moving at different speeds, it can get really fraught.
We will not stand back and allow a politically correct minority to undermine the important position of marriage in our society and determine morality for the majority. We didn't vote for it and we're no having it.
Brian Souter spent £1 million of his own money funding the Keep the Clause campaign in 2000 and staged a referendum to oppose the repeal of legislation which forbade local authorities from intentionally promoting homosexuality. His opponents had considerably less cash to throw about, but did have the support of the main political parties, including the SNP, for whom Mr Souter was a significant donor.
Although technically it's still consulting on the matter, the SNP says it's minded to support the concept of gay marriage. But if you get political leaders in one place, religious leaders in the complete opposite, the public ends up being caught in a battle for hearts and minds.
We will continue to preserve, to protect and to defend the institution of marriage.
The SNP accepts that religious organisations that don't wish to conduct same-sex marriages shouldn't have to, but in recent weeks campaigners led by Cardinal Keith O'Brien of the Catholic Church have been at the Scottish Parliament arguing the case against any change to the status quo.
And we urge everyone in our country to unite in support of Scotland for marriage.
Muslims are also concerned, and Glasgow imams have also come out strongly against any change to the status of marriage as anything but a union between a man and a woman. But today the argument came from those for religious gay marriage. The SNP might be minded for change, but it's well aware that sexuality and politics can be a volatile mix.
Well, I'm joined by Tom French of the Equality Network, who's speaking for the campaign group Faith in Marriage, which supports the idea of gay marriage, and by the Catholic Church's John Deegan, who's from the campaign group Scotland for Marriage, which opposes the idea. And what do you make of the claim that opposing the idea is actually homophobic or entrenches homophobia in our society, John?
I think it's good to see the argument come out like that just now so that we understand how this is going to impact in society. Just now we've found that about 85% of people think that you can support traditional marriage and recognise the rights of other people, and we're seeing now that if same-sex marriage goes through, then they won't tolerate that position. So this is going to affect the majority of the country, and they need to wake up to this now and change the minds of politicians who, I think, do have...
What about homophobia?
Well, homophobia... You're accused of being homophobic simply for upholding a value that all societies have holded. The human rights instruments that our society operate on have always upheld. So really it's quite worrying that we're about to go down a path where normal people, believing what people have always believed, will be charged with something which in the Equality Network and other organisations that see as being akin to racism.
Defending tradition.
You know what, marriage has changed over the centuries numerous times. One example is you can now no longer beat your wife legally. You know, a man used to be able to have as many wives as he could afford to keep. So in terms of defending tradition, it's absolutely fine for groups like the Catholic Church to be able to hold marriages in whatever way they see fit. But all we're calling for is other faith groups that want to conduct same-sex marriages and the state, civil marriages. We feel that they should be allowed to conduct same-sex marriages. So it's not about requiring the Catholic Church or any other body to conduct them. It's about allowing those groups that want to be able to.
But hang on a minute, you said in your letter today that not to do that was entrenching homophobia. That's what you're saying his position is about.
I think opposing same-sex marriage altogether, so not the Catholic Church, what we're saying is if they want to not do same-sex marriages themselves, they shouldn't have to. But it seems like they're going beyond that and saying that they want to impose their views on the rest of society and all other faith groups.
And if so?
And if so, I think that's wrong. I think that goes against religious freedom. So groups like the Unitarians, the Quakers, the Liberal Jews want to conduct same-sex marriages and should be able to.
OK, so why not let them do that and then you carry on doing your thing?
I think Tom's confusing two things. There is marriage that applies to everyone in society. There's an understanding of marriage that's for the public good. It's for bringing together men and women for the sake of children. And we all have to operate in a society where we can do that as best we can.
OK, but you presumably, I will let you come back in, but you presumably don't accept that that is what marriage is about. What do you think it's about?
No, I think marriage is about two people coming together who love each other and want to celebrate that partnership. And I think we've seen around the world a number of countries, 7 countries in Europe have already legalised same-sex marriage.
OK, what's wrong with his definition?
Well, I think everyone knows that there's a complementarity between a man and a woman that just doesn't exist in any other relationship. Love is a good thing, but the love between a husband and a wife is something different. I mean, any biology lesson could teach us that. There's something unique and different about this, and to say that two men can form the same relationship as a man and a woman is really illogical. It's contrary to reason. To say that two men can be the same as a mum and dad, it just flies in the face of common sense. And I think people are starting to wake up to this now when they see the case that we had in England last week, where a Catholic school were teaching that marriage is between a man and a woman, and the uproar it caused, the amount of campaigning from homosexual groups has now led to a government inquiry. So this is what it's going to do for religious freedom. This is what it's going to do for all of us, for the 85% of people who think that traditional marriage can be upheld at the same time as recognising the rights of others, which we have recognised. Civil partnership gives same-sex couples the exact same rights as spouses.
OK, can you just clarify, though? I mean, are you now in favour of civil partnerships?
I'm not in favour of civil partnerships. It has led us to the position we're in just now because we said civil partnership is preparing the way for same-sex marriage, and at the time we were told, don't be silly, no one could ever redefine marriage.
That is an interesting point,
and this is exactly
Tom,
what they've done.
Because there was a time where people on your side of the argument said all you needed to be equal was civil partnership, the same rights. When did the argument change?
Absolutely
Some people argued that. Some people did argue
Well,
that.
the Equality Network, for example, back when civil partnership was being introduced, said, OK, we'll support this as a step forward, but in our submissions to the government at the time, we said this is not equality. Look, we believe in the same rights, the same laws, the same rules for all people, all citizens. I think equality under the law is a principle that's really key to Scotland, and that's what we're calling for here. We're not calling for special gay rights, we're calling for equal rights and equal treatment.
You're trying to make this a political issue a few days out from local government elections?
Absolutely not. For us, this is not an issue about the local council elections. Council elections are about improving local communities, not dividing them as John wishes to do. For us, this is an issue about the Scottish Parliament standing up for the values of equality and tolerance in Scotland.
What about you, John? You're sending out all these leaflets.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to waken up to local politicians as well as national politicians that this is about the imposition by a minority, an understanding of marriage that the world has never seen before being imposed on people. It will be imposed on local authorities.
But
it will be imposed.
You're trying to make this an election issue, are you? You want people to vote on this issue in the local council?
Yes, of course, absolutely. Yeah, we want them to check with their councillors. What will you do in our schools? Will you make sure that parents are allowed to have their children taught that marriage is between a man and a woman, or will you have those parents and their children labelled as bigots for supporting the understanding of marriage that all societies have always had and their human rights?
OK, well, how do you feel about that then?
Well, I think John and the Catholic Church, as one example, have every right not to conduct same-sex marriages, and no one is calling for them to do so. So the Scottish Government proposals and our campaign is not calling for that. I think there's a wider agenda going on here, though.
But what about its election agenda? I want you to address that.
Well, I think the election agenda is unfortunate because it's dividing communities. I mean, essentially what you're saying is...
Why? You divided it today, then, with your campaign?
Telling people that they should not vote for candidates who support same-sex marriage, I mean, that raises questions of what kind of candidates are going to support same-sex marriage. Are gay candidates, for example, more likely to support same-sex marriage?
We're asking for candidates who will protect marriage and protect freedoms of people to support marriage as it's always been understood. We've seen an example of the school in England last week where there's a government inquiry for a Catholic school teaching that marriage is between a man and a woman. This is a foretaste of what will come in this imposition of a minority view in the rest of society.
And you're saying it should be settled in a referendum. Would that suit you, Tom?
I don't think it's necessary. Before the last Scottish Parliament elections, 4 out of the 5 parties had this in their manifestos. So we elect our politicians at Holyrood to make these kind of decisions.
You think those politicians are out of touch to you, John?
Yes, I think they've certainly been pushed by a very well-organised campaign. I mean, they do a good job.
Well, you haven't spent quite as much as you, John.
Well, I wish we had the money you have. Yours is all government-funded. Taxpayers' money goes to fund your campaigns. We have to raise it ourselves. They've done a very good job. They've pushed politicians and without thinking, and I think it's a live and let live, but they're starting to now realise how the impact in the rest of society, how hard it's going to be in people. And I think as they're waking up to that,
very finally, give me a figure. How much have you spent?
How much have we spent? 50,000?
A few £1,000s.
No, you spend millions of pounds of taxpayers' money promoting your agenda. Millions of pounds.
John and Tom, thanks both very much indeed for coming in. John Deegan from the Catholic Church and Tom French from the Equality Network.